One down, 12 to go. The Philadelphia Phillies are one win away from clinching yet another NLDS berth and heading back to Atlanta to take on the Atlanta Braves. James Harden plans to join the team out there in Colorado, and the Eagles go out and get some much needed cornerback help. That and much, much more on today's show. This is the Phaithful Phanatics Show, live on DSM-Media's YouTube and Twitter channels. Guys, if you are new to the channel, make sure to check us out on Twitter at DSM_media. Hit that follow button. We greatly, greatly appreciate it. And while you're over on the page, make sure to check out the link tree in our bio. It will take you to every social media platform we are available on. If you guys want to be interactive throughout today's show or any of our shows here at DSM, make sure to subscribe to the DSM-Philadelphia YouTube channel that we are streaming to you on right now. Turn on notifications, whatever you got to do, but it is the best spot to join your host here. I am one half of them, Dylan Davis. To my right, my co-host, Scotty. My man, what an electric Tuesday night at the bank, and I cannot wait to see where this team continues to go, but it is one down, 12 more to go.
Yes, sir. What an electric start to the postseason. And I feel like the Phillies did it in a very unorthodox manner compared to what they played all season. They just took what the Marlins gave them, played a borderline perfect game, in my opinion. When you talk about a game plan to come in here and win at home with wheels on the mound. Maybe one or two mistakes last night, maybe 2 to 3 if you want to count the base running and Dusty's instructions.
Yeah, man.
There was a couple errors there, but aside from that, man, it was a beautiful game and gives me a little bit more confidence because you saw guys that outside of the stars, right? It wasn't like a 3-run Schwarber that saves the day last night. It wasn't a Bryce Harper, 2-run two-run RBI hit, right? A double in the late part of the game. No, it was everybody contributing and making plays throughout the game. You had everybody in the lineup get a hit. And most of them got a hit on Luzardo last night. So that was great to see. He only lasted 4 innings. But yeah, I'm obviously excited to get into the game with you and break it down. But yeah, electric way to start the postseason. And deter us a little bit away from this clown James Harden for a little bit.
Yeah, man, we'll obviously get into that, but Zach Wheeler was absolutely electric last night. You can't overlook that one single bit. Obviously, ran into some trouble in the 7th, couldn't find a way to punch out. Multiple hitters with 2 runs, had a back-to-back infield singles. One scores a run, he gets the yank there. Alvarado comes in, cleans up the mess after a spiked ball. And the Phillies ultimately only give up that single run last night. But Zach Wheeler was absolutely dominant. And that's why on the pregame show, we kind of talked about how he is one of the most underrated pitchers across the entire major leagues. And he's also one of the most underrated stars we have here in Philadelphia and have had here in terms of our Philadelphia athletes across the major 4 or 5 teams. This dude just has ice in his veins every time he goes out there, man. Like, to put out that performance in front of that crowd last night, he said he got chills before the game. And normally when you hear, someone say that, I don't want to say it's a bad thing because, they're human beings. But when you talk about a guy like Ranger who, Topper always talks about how his heartbeat never changes. He never wavers, right? And you never hear Ranger say. So to hear Wheels basically talk about how he was humanized last night, he got chills from that ovation walking out of the bullpen, and then to go and just go and delivering the way he did, dude. The fastball was electric. I mean, he had 98 through the first 4 or 5 innings. Like, he came out, threw it in the first inning. I expected, just because of kind of the energy and the adrenaline rush he was experiencing. No, he kept pumping 98 through 4 or 5. The sweeper was really good. The slider was really good. And just location all around. He was able to work the bottom of the count or the bottom of the zone and then come back up with the high heat to put guys away. It was really, really masterful last night. Alvarado comes in, gets 3 outs. And then Jeff Hoffman comes in, gets the biggest out of the game probably. Yeah. Kimbrel gives up a leadoff double, but then does not really waver after that, man. The Philadelphia Phillies pitching staff all around, starting with Zach Wheeler, was dominant against a good but inexperienced Marlins team.
Yeah, no doubt. You laid it all out there correctly, and on the same page, you got to preserve some of your bullpen arms as well, with how long Wheeler lasted, how good the other guys that came in looked. But you mentioned it with Wheels, man. It's just crazy. You talk about him and the stars of Philadelphia, and he doesn't get talked about much up there with the guys like Bryce Harper, Embiid. You know, down the line, Jalen Hurts now in the Eagles. So I think we need to start mentioning him in those conversations because he is one of the faces of this franchise that has been highly successful in the last 2 seasons, especially. And he's been an ace since he's got here. Everybody thought he was going to be the number 2 to Nola when we bring him in a few seasons ago. He ends up looking like this, right? And I think when you talk about him getting chills, I think it's not just the crowd. Like, obviously, the crowd, they talked about it on the broadcast last night. They mentioned that it's one of the best, if not the best, home field advantage is in baseball. I saw Jeff Passan compare it to an SEC stadium on Scott Van Pelt's show on SportsCenter. So the crowd speaks for itself, right? Everybody sees it on the national broadcast last night. But I also think it's just Zach Wheeler, like, realizing he is the guy for this team. He is the number one that comes out in the beginning of this postseason at home. He's in his peak, right? He's in his zone, and that's a huge vote of confidence going forward to have your ace looking like that in the game one. Because look at the other side. I mean, Luzardo, he didn't look terrible, but he definitely didn't have his best stuff last night, and it cost the Marlins the game ultimately. So to see Wills come out like that last night, now does that put a ton of pressure on Nola? The pressure's already on Nola. I don't even think that adds anything to it, because the pressure is going to be there on Nola to come out and perform tonight. But you hit the nail on the head with Zach Wheeler. I just wanted to give him the praise as well, but no, it was right in front of our faces. Had the one hiccup, right? I don't know if that was Bryce Harper's fault or his fault, whoever you want to.
Yeah, it was a little bit of both. Obviously, the broadcast highlighted Zach kind of spectating a little longer than he should have been, and they're right. But Bryce being new over at first base, that's the second baseman's ball. Obviously, Bryce Stott fielded that fairly easily. When you watch the replay of the location of where Bryce's body is when he dives, I mean, dude, he is literally midway down. He's 45 feet down the line in between first and second base. That's second baseman's ball. Bryce should have retreated back to first base, and it would have been an easy out there. Inning ends. You know, hey man, it happens. If the umpire, you know, rings up, I believe it was Brian De La Cruz. If he rings up Brian De La Cruz the way he should have on the check swing, we're not having this conversation. It's not an infield hit. Down the third baseline to Alec Boehm. And it's a strikeout, but you know, that's neither here nor there. Zach Wheeler was amazing. And I think just to wrap him up, it's kind of like you saw it last year, and then you saw the arm get tired down the line in the World Series. Hopefully, you know, that's not an issue again if we were to get there, but there's no light is too bright. No weight is too heavy. Like, this dude is built for this moment. And I saw last night, obviously, after his day was over, his 3 game ones going back to last year are ridiculous. It's 6 1/3, no runs, 7 innings, no runs, 6 2/3, 1 run to start off series. Like, that's huge to set the table for the rest of the way, for the rest of the series. Like, that is absolutely huge, not only for your team, for yourself, but like you alluded to earlier, your bullpen. Getting to the 7th inning, getting through 7 innings in one that starts, that is huge to keep your bullpen fresh the rest of the way. Excuse me. But yeah, he was great. Bullpen was good. Hakuna Matata there. The lineup.
Simply put,
you mentioned it, right? Everybody hit, and it was a beautiful thing. The reason I'm even more amped about this win last night is early morning, man.
Get some water down.
The reason I'm even more amped, there we go, is because this team played nowhere near A-plus
Yeah.
ball. This was so reminiscent of what we've been saying every Victory Monday, Victory Friday, Victory Tuesday. They played all over the place for the Philadelphia Eagles so far, right?
Yeah.
A win is a win. And it wasn't that, because obviously this win was much, much more impressive. You won by 3 runs, right? They were very, very good, but you didn't hit well with runners in scoring position.
Yeah.
You know, didn't hit for power, right? There were no home runs last night, but that was the beautiful thing, man.
Yeah.
Everybody hit, but Bryce Harper had a bloop single. That was
Yeah.
it. Your best player had a bloop single.
Yeah.
Kyle Schwarber led the game off with a single. Nothing
Didn't
after
get
that. A
anything
couple
else.
really bad at-bats after that, right? Like I said, you left runners on second and third. You left a runner on third. Bad base running at third base by Dusty Wathan, right? There were a decent amount of things where you go, oh, that can't happen.
Could have been better.
Still won the game. I don't want to say easily, because our nerves were rocking the whole time, but they handled that game once they got up 3-0.
That last Soler at bat, that was definitely nerve-wracking.
Nerve-wracking for sure. But they ended up being okay, obviously. But that's where I kind of take it. This team played, B baseball last night, B- baseball last night in terms of, at the on offense. And they were able to come away with a very solid victory to start the postseason. And that's why I love this team, man. And that's why they're different compared to last year, as you and I were talking about on the pregame show. They can beat you in a plethora of ways. This team is no longer just primarily built on the long ball. I know that sounds crazy when 6 of their 9 starters hit for 20-plus home runs. Schwarber almost hits for 50. Trust me, they're a lot more dominant and flashy when they hit the long ball successfully.
Yeah.
But they don't need to. We talked about setting the table last night, right? Everyone freaks out about Schwarber being a leadoff guy, when in reality, he probably only leads off an inning one time throughout a 9-inning game, right? Well, last night, through the first, 5 or 6 innings, 4 of the first 5 innings, the Phillies led the inning off with a single.
Yep.
Leadoff base runner on. Immediate pressure. It was beautiful. It was beautiful. And the last thing that I'll throw to you here is one of our keys was to get to Luzardo early, to not allow him to be comfortable in front of that raucous crowd. He has no idea what he's walking into, so we're okay with being aggressive. Well, the Phillies kind of did the opposite of be aggressive last night in terms of Jesus Luzardo, but boy, did their way work, Scotty.
Yeah.
Over 90 pitches through 4 innings. He doesn't even come back out to pitch the 5th. You get to their bullpen very early on in this game. And you made the young kid come to you. And I think that's what Castellanos talked about with John Clark in the postgame show. The Phillies hitters worked a lot of long fall counts. The Phillies hitters were in a lot of hitters positions with up 1-0, up 2-1 in a count. He had to come to them. That slider, man, that's so vicious against lefties. It got Schwarber once, it got Harper once.
Yeah.
It wasn't working to righties. He was spiking it. He was down and in by their feet multiple times. It wasn't there for the kid, and the Phillies were able to obviously get 3 across on him and get him out of the game pretty early.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And you talk about the way the Phillies were working Luzardo. You saw in that first at bat for Pache, right? That was probably the worst at bat of the night. He looked like a deer in headlights. I texted you. Obviously, we put out like a little mini best bet sort of on the Eagles or Phillies pregame, excuse me. And obviously, we're like, whoa, I don't know if that's it. Comes back the next at bat, man, settles in and gets an RBI on the night. Like that just speaks to what this lineup was doing last night. Rojas comes in after
his first at bat.
His first at bat was amazing, man. This kid, I mean, and these guys are making plays in the outfield on top of that, right? Pache makes the incredible catch on the first inning to start the game, man. Like it just speaks to everybody that contributed last night, and I think that was a big part of getting to Luzardo was like not only relying on the stars, the big bats of this team to get to him. The guys at the bottom of this lineup were getting to him as well. You had Cassie. I think he had 2 hits last night.
2 doubles.
2 doubles. You had Pache with a hit, Rojas with a hit. Everybody got a hit, right? Stott started the game with the RBI, which shout out to Mark Henry, because I did tail him after we got off our pod.
Nice.
Saw him lay the Stott RBI and the Stott run. I don't think he got a run, but definitely got the RBI. I laid that. So came up on a little bit of cash there. But No, man. I think it speaks to exactly what you said. Getting to Luzardo and getting to the rest through the rest of this game with taking what you can get. And that's kind of what I meant earlier. I didn't mean it as in the Phillies played their perfect game.
No,
They kind of played the perfect
way to
game plan, right? The basic way to win a baseball game
I
at home. And I thought Topper pressed all the right buttons last night. I think that was a big part of it. There's still meat left on the bone, though. And to your point, that gives me a lot of confidence going forward because they can be better. They can be much better. The Stars can be much better. Shout out to Trey Turner. He had a hell of a game last night as well. 2 hits in that game, a double, 2 stolen bases, I believe, maybe even 3. I can't remember exactly there. But nonetheless, man, this lineup showed up big and true. Topper presses all the right buttons. Even Alvarado bringing him back out right after he gets the out to end the inning for Wheels, comes out in the next inning, gets him through maybe another 1 or 2 outs. But nonetheless, man, I loved what this team did last night. I am disturbed by Josh Bell continuing to torch Phillies pitchers, but luckily it didn't cost him too much last night.
What is it, Scotty? It's no one on base in front of him.
Exactly. It's exactly what we talked about, man. Empty, right? Multi-base hits, but there's nobody else on the bases, so you don't get any runs out of it. I loved it. I thought, once again, just the plus of them winning in a different way, just showing the difference from last year. You don't have to hit a ton of home runs. They didn't hit 1 home run last night, and they were able to get multiple runs on the board and win this game. I feel like that just shows a complete difference from not only this regular season, but last postseason as well, man.
Well, 100%, because when you go back to last postseason, what stalled? What happened to the Phillies? When the long ball disappeared, they were unable to manufacture runs across the board. Exactly. Now, again, they still weren't good with runners in scoring position. They were like 3 for 14. But when they needed it, Alec Boehm, what was that? 2nd inning?
Yeah.
3rd inning, whatever it was. Probably 3rd. Comes up, 2 outs, puts it a double down the line. Bang. There's 1. When you get to, was it Cotton? No. Pache might have been with 2 outs. They were able to keep the line moving last night, man. And here's what I wanted to point out. Another key that we had on the pregame show was providing power and pop from the right side against the lefty last night. Schwarber, Harper, Stott, they have carried this team more times than we can count, especially Schwarber and Harper with their power. If they're going to struggle tonight versus the lefty, let's get the right-handers going. Now, they didn't hit for power, but Trey doubled.
Yep.
Boehm RBI double. Castellanos 2 doubles. That's taking advantage of the left-hander last night, man. And that was a beautiful thing to see. Like you said, Trey 2 for 2 stealing last night. He's now 32 for 32 on this season. Hasn't been caught yet. You get, like you even mentioned, Johan Rojas's first at bat where he was absolutely amazing. He gets on base, and due to his speed, a ball slightly gets away from the catcher. It wasn't a pass ball. It didn't get to the wall, whatever. Slightly gets to the left of him. Rojas is on second base. Schwarber strikes out, but it doesn't matter. His speed, he's able to get there. That's what sets up the Alec Boehm 2-out RBI double.
Yeah. No, it was beautiful. And that's what I loved about this game. Once again, you had guys like Rojas and Pache make plays in this game. And these are young guys, right? These are guys that are getting their footing, similar to the Marlins in the postseason, right? These are guys that haven't been here yet, and they're able to get their footing against a team like the Marlins. It bodes well when you're looking at potentially going up against the Atlanta Braves in the next round. You don't want to look too far ahead, but this is all good experience that we're seeing Rojas and Pache specifically gather here. So I love to see that. What was I just thinking? Oh, I wanted to talk about Bryce Harper in this game because you mentioned it. It was just a blooper single. He really didn't look like Bryce Harper that we typically see in this game. That wasn't the MV3 necessarily. And a lot of that is Luzardo, right? With his those sliders. I believe they've said he threw like 6 of them in a row to him at one at bat. Ended up getting him out, but nonetheless, it speaks to what he does against Bryce. But still able to gather in a Bryce Harper moment in the postseason, in the first game of the postseason, just with his base running this time and just pure effort, right? Like it's just pure effort that you see out of him. And that's what Philadelphia loves about Bryce Harper, man. Just waves off the third base coach and just goes straight home.
Dude.
Man. I wanted to ask you, that brings up another point. How did you feel about the Schwarber getting stopped at third? Like, did you think
you have
to let him go, right?
You have to send him. I know it's Kyle Schwarber. And in the moment, initially when it happened, I took a breath. I said, all right, it's all right, because it's the first out of the inning, right? You have second and third. Harper's coming up. You don't want to force it here and whatever. But even Trey Turner was tagging up from second.
Yeah.
The reason you send him there is because the way the right fielder had to play the ball.
Yeah.
He had to run under the line drive, get it, basically spin and throw. It's just the way he had to throw was going to send the ball down the line. You should know that. And it's exactly what happened. The ball, when you show the replay, I mean, my goodness, Schwarber would have crawled home because the throw went halfway up the line and he would have been way past the third baseman at that point.
Yeah.
So it was a horrific throw. There would have been no play at the plate. You got to send him there. And then Dusty kind of overcompensates a few innings later by sending Nick Castellanos.
Yeah.
And I don't think it was a bad read to send Castellanos. You know, Josh Chisholm had to turn and pirouette and throw a dart home as well. It was a great play, but he sends him home after not sending Schwarber. Castellanos gets thrown out. Here we go. And then the icing on the cake, man. When whoever took that screenshot of the frame of where Bryce is when Dusty's throwing up the stop sign.
Yeah.
And what is Dusty Wathan doing?
Yeah.
Bryce Harper scored within 20 feet.
Easily.
Like, it wasn't going to be close.
No.
And this dude threw up the stop sign. Dusty better figure it out.
Yeah.
Because he's not a guy that's normally conservative.
Yeah.
So, and like, my man, you were in the bright lights last year, so there should be no excuses. There should be no, cobwebs for you, dude.
I don't know if that's like nerves or what, man. Because like you said, he did overcompensate with the Casti brain. And it's like, you'll take it, but you'll take it if you let Kyle Schwarber go in that first inning as well, right? So like, that's the other side of it. You got to
here's the other
keep
side
a
of
similar
it as well.
game plan, right?
Here's the other side of it as well. You can't do that against Atlanta. You can't waste second and third because you didn't send Schwarber against Atlanta and then get someone thrown out the plate, and then God forbid Bryce Harper listens to you against Atlanta, and you don't send him like that. That you cannot. If Bryce stays and they don't end up scoring him, Dusty Wathan cost them 3 runs last night. Think about that.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's crazy to think about, man. I did want to hit one more point here because you mentioned Jazz Chisholm. We talked about Soler earlier, Berger. Now, Josh Bell, obviously 3 for 4. He had a night, but Arias only gets the 1 hit towards the end of the game. He's not even moving well, as you can see on the bases. But didn't it just feel like the Phillies – I get it, they have home field advantage, but didn't it feel like they turned it up a notch, especially the pitching staff? That's where I'm really targeting here. They just look locked in. And obviously it starts with Wheels, going into the 7th inning. But everybody that came in looked calm, cool, and collected. Like, Alvarado was the perfect button to press because of the way he gets the crowd going as well. And then you bring in Hoffman, right? He looks settled whenever he comes in. And then, obviously, Kimbrel to close the game. It just felt like they hit a switch. Because we've seen Arias tear us up this throughout the regular season. He tears everybody up, right?
I'll
like
tell
he's
you
a
what
batting champion.
You know how on the pregame show I said playoff baseball is so much different and so much more exciting because everything is put under a microscope.
Yeah.
Everything's magnified. Every pitch, every walk, every at-bat is magnified compared to the regular season where if it's 0-0 or you're losing 2-0 in the 4th or 5th, you're like, oh, it's early still. Not in the postseason, right? So when you have the experience and the run 90% of this Phillies team went on last year, you understand what each pitch means. For Zach Wheeler understands what each at-bat means. Whereas when you get, and don't get me wrong, like I said, Jorge Soler's been there. Arias played with the Twins. I believe he has some postseason experience, but like when you're playing an inexperienced group like the Marlins who haven't been here together, maybe they didn't quite grasp the level of importance each at bat and each pitch is going to take. Like Jazz Chisholm's a perfect example.
Yeah, he's exactly who I think
of not understanding what's happening. He came out before the game on a podcast and said how this team, there are no lights too bright for this team. They love the moment. They're built for the moment. He gets on a pregame interview with a spaceship chain and talking about how he's an alien, like effing E.T. And then he gets up and tries to bunt, but hesitates trying to bunt on back-to-back pitches for 2 strikes. Gets sat down. That's a guy not understanding how valuable that at-bat was. With a runner on base already.
Yeah. As talented as he is, he's the first guy that kind of brought that thought to mind. Like, he's just not ready for the moment because you come out, you say all these things. You need to be that guy in the game. And he had plenty of opportunities to make a game-changing play in this game. So, yeah, he's the first guy I thought of because he talked
I was ripping him. Like, we were sitting there, and every time he made it out, every time he was up to bat or didn't like a call, I couldn't get over his pregame interview.
Yeah.
Like, the part of it I liked. Like, when he basically, the crowd was going nuts and he was smiling and laughing, and he's like, basically, he was right. Just happy to be in an environment like it's booing or cheering. This is fun, right? Now, I don't know how it could possibly be fun for an opponent, but whatever. It's fun for him. But then, like, they ask him about his chain, and he's like, I think I'm an alien. The hell are you talking about, dude? You're on national television. I think I'm an alien. All right, E.T., let's see what you got.
I'm not from here.
Tries to bunt twice in one at bat and gets sat down, and then argues a strike call.
That's when I knew it was getting
not
to
understanding what that moment and that at bat meant.
Yeah, and did you hear the broadcast whenever it was a bad strike call on a Bryce Harper at bat, and they said Bryce Harper is not above getting kicked out of this game, and I'm like, man, like, to say that, like, I get that he just got kicked out of a game dealing with Angel,
kicked out of this playoff game
in a postseason game at home in Philadelphia, not a chance in hell, Bryce Harper.
I will say that umpire needs to not call another game in the postseason.
That was pretty bad, and I think it was pretty bad both ways. There was a couple strikes called for the Phillies even that I was just like, what the hell?
What I will say
I'm not going to complain.
The weird part about him was I thought he started off the game strong. Yeah, I thought for the first 3-4 innings, I thought he called it fairly clean. Maybe one strike off the plate, give or take. At least
consistently.
Yeah, it was the same spot of the plate where you're like, all right, he's giving that little corner, whatever the case may be. And then at some point in the 5th or 6th inning, he started to make it about himself.
Yeah.
It became an show for both sides, like you said. Yeah. Dude, there was one to Trey Turner, and I'm sure you're going to remember it. It was, I'm not joking, 4 inches below the plate.
Yeah.
Not like, oh, the ball didn't touch the line. No, like the ball was this far below the bottom line of the box.
It wasn't even close.
You know how we just talked about how every pitch and every at-bat matters in the postseason? Yeah. You change an at-bat when you started off incorrectly. Because now Trey has to – now instead of a correct 1-0, it's an incorrect 0-1, and he has to fight from behind. He gets a slider low and away that's on the plate. He swings at it. Now he's down 0-2, all because of that really poor call.
That first poor call.
And it can't happen. It cannot happen at this stage of the season, man. It just, you can't continue to allow that. However you can appeal check swings when it comes to third and first base umpires is beyond me. These dudes are 90 plus feet away on an angle. And I mean, 2 times in one inning for the Miami Marlins where they went around and you say no. And of course it's the inning they score their lone run.
Yeah, and it bothers me because then you'll have the very next inning, I believe it was Rojas who checked his swing, exact same spot, and it's called a strike, right? He went on that. Like, that's what kills me is the inconsistency. If you're allowing the check swing to go that far, then allow it the entire game. That's what it's all about. It's not even necessarily about, missed calls. It's just about missing the same calls consistently. If you're extending
100%.
that box, then extend it for both teams and both sides the entire game. They just need to be more consistent all around. And you don't want to get through the postseason with a game like we had a couple weeks or maybe a week ago with Angel Hernandez.
Yeah.
You don't want to have a situation like that where a guy is taking over the game, right? Yep. It didn't happen as much last night, but as you mentioned, just started to get inconsistent and a little selfish towards the end of the game last night. I did want to ask you, though, how big obviously we're going to get into Phillies pregame later today.
Yeah.
How big is it to get this series over with tonight?
I think it's huge for two reasons. Again, we talked about, shutting the door on the Marlins, on an inexperienced, younger, lesser talented team like the Marlins last night, and not really giving them an inkling of thought that they can actually pull this off, right? Yeah. And you step one completed last night. So you do have wiggle room. Obviously, it's not win or go home for the Phillies tonight, but you need to play it that way because you don't want to get into a do or die situation. Yeah. Where anything can happen on Thursday. Take care of business tonight. And then for the second reason, the pitching staff against Atlanta. If you are able to get it tonight, you would most likely have Rangers start the series. Is it Ranger Wheel? I don't want to mess this up. Hold on. I think Mark Henry tweeted this out. Let me just get it correct for how the pitching staff would line up because it would be incredibly clutch.
I was listening to 97.5 this morning, and they apparently said that it was the John Kincaid's show, and they were mentioning that the Game 3 starter hasn't even been named. I don't know if that's true or not, though.
I don't think it has, but it's most likely. I believe it's Ranger. Yeah. Gotta love when you can't find what you're looking for. Anyway, what I would imagine, here it is. If you win tomorrow, you could have Ranger game 1, Wheeler game 2, Nola game 3, Sanchez game 4, Ranger game 5. Maybe Wheeler is available out of bullpen on 4 days rest for the entire series against the Atlanta Braves. Like, that's optimal. That's optimal. Now, if you lose tonight, Ranger has to throw game 3 against the Marlins. Now that throws off. Now maybe Christopher Sanchez is starting game 1 against the Atlanta Braves instead of Ranger Suarez and then Zach Wheeler and so on and so forth. Yeah, so it changes the direction moving forward against the Atlanta Braves, which is huge.
Yeah, a lot of pressure on Nola's shoulders tonight, regardless of what happened last night, regardless of what Zach Wheeler did last night. We already knew that he's the ace on this team, but Nola's, man, got to come through tonight, bro.
Huge. Like you said, we'll be breaking it down on DSM pregame live tonight around 6 p.m., just like last night. So, guys, make sure you are subscribed, turn on notifications right here on the DSM Philadelphia YouTube channel. And it's the best spot to get your thoughts and comments pulled up on the screen with us. Don't forget to drop your game predictions. Moving on.
Yes, sir.
How exactly is James Harden going to make things more uncomfortable? Is he going to throw Gatorade on the court? Is he going to cause a fight? Is he going to have a cell phone in his pocket? There's a lot of different variables and scenarios that you could play out in your head. So, James Harden is expected to join the team out in Colorado. Nick Nurse obviously wanted to get the team out of the city, build some chemistry, get away from the noise to start camp. Obviously, last night, the whole team goes and meets and greets Coach Prime at Colorado.
Yeah.
Successful trip so far. Joel Embiid smiles. Tyrese Maxey always smiles. Looking good. And in is walking trouble, man. And now I want to get your thoughts on how this situation could play out, but I do think it's interesting, like, to Marshawn Lynch's point, what exactly is James planning? Because if you come in and are a distraction or you're causing trouble, you're just going to get kicked out and fined, and you're not going to be allowed back because of your antics. If you come in and don't cause trouble and keep to yourself, but you're noticeably bad and a lack of whatever the case may be, you're going to get kicked out and you're going to get fined because you're not living up to your contract. If you show up and try to say my hamstring, well, Philadelphia's team doctors are going to be allowed to examine you and figure out, is it really your hamstring? And then you are going to get kicked out and get fined. I don't know exactly what card James Harden has left to play, man.
Yeah, I don't know. It's confusing as a whole. We've been going through this for months now. It's confusing as to why he's doing this once again. It's going to ruin his image more than anything that it does to the Sixers. Obviously, we know what a hole it leaves with the way he's acting right now. And if he shows up, maybe it's an even bigger hole if he's not playing up to what he is capable of. But you're right. Like, what is he going to come to practice and do? Because Nick Nurse, he's not going to have it, right? Like, Doc Rivers, I don't even think would have it. We saw what he did with Ben Simmons kicking him out of practice when he had the cell phone in the pocket. So I just don't see what he's going to get out of this. And I also think, looking at the rest of this team, you mentioned they go to Deion Sanders. They go to Boulder and visit him last night. It's a team building experience on top of meeting a legend, right? A very inspirational leader throughout the sports community. But when you look on this team and you look at the leaders on the team, you look at Tobias, you look at Joel Embiid, even PJ Tucker. PJ Tucker's an outlier from this situation that I'm about to get into. But if James Harden comes in and he's acting a fool at practice, at some point as a player on this team, a leader on this team, you have to throw the friendship card away. Like if he does this on a practice court where Daryl Morey really isn't even involved, he's not involved in practice. He shouldn't be involved in practice. What is stopping me as a player, as a leader on this team from getting in James Harden's face and telling him, seeing what's up, right? Like that. It's something I said to Sean Barnard yesterday on Twitter. What's up? Like you don't respect me. If I'm Joel Embiid, you don't respect me enough to not only not show up to my wedding, and you're supposed to be my friend. You gave me this watch for winning MVP, blah, blah, blah. But you're coming on to my team. You're coming to my practice, and you're disturbing my process, right? That's the line that I'm looking at here. Somebody on this team needs to step up and set a line, set a precedent.
Right.
Won't happen, though.
Very Terrell Owens closed door locker room situation back in 2004, 2005.
Yeah.
That, we kind of sit here and think it happened, right? I think it's a great point because
it needs checked.
If you're Joel Embiid or anybody on this team really, but more so Joel Embiid, right? You're the leader. This is your team. Whatever you got going on off the court, whatever issues you have with Daryl Morey, whatever beliefs you may have, that's on your time. That's your stuff.
Yeah,
I got you. Handle it the way you would like to.
Yeah,
you come here, you come to Colorado, you come to Camden. Now you're affecting me.
Yeah.
Now you're affecting my team.
Yeah.
Now there's a problem.
Yeah.
And I'm going to tell you something. If he stir shit up, I don't even know how. Like, these are grown men, dude. These aren't middle schoolers where the bad kid is going to
33-year-old coming to throw a fit.
Right. Like, I don't know what because again, if his beef isn't with his teammates and he doesn't know Nick, it's not like Doc's still here and he has a beef with Doc. Morey's not up in a suite in Camden looking down, watching. Like, what is he going to do? Because it's not like he's going to do anything dirty towards his teammates.
Right.
Why would he argue with Nick Nurse and be so it's very weird. But if he was to do that, I would have a problem if none of the Sixers have a problem with him.
Yeah.
I'm not saying to stoop down his level. You all know what his intentions are coming there if he does act a certain way. But the problem is now you're affecting me. Now you're affecting us. And I would already view it that way by him publicly calling out the president of basketball operations of your organization, Joe. Yeah. Like, now he's already affected the Philadelphia 76ers. He didn't have to resign.
Yeah.
He didn't have
He
to
didn't have to
resign.
opt in. Yeah. That's the thing. And like I sit here and ask myself, how can a 33-year-old go across the country, wherever he's coming from, Houston, whatever the
He's
case
probably
may
close.
be?
Probably come from Vegas.
Right, right. So not even across the country. But either way, how are you taking your private jet to Colorado and you're about to go in there as a 33-year-old man and like cause trouble, right? But then I take myself back and he's in China calling Daryl Morey a liar. That's childish as well. Then he's in Houston at a club again and there's signs, girls holding up signs of Daryl Morey as a liar. So it's like, can I imagine him stooping to this level? I can, man, because he's just it's beyond me. I don't know where these actions.
What happens when he shows up to practice with a Daryl Morey is a liar T-shirt on? Like he takes off his hoodie and it's Daryl Morey is a liar real big on his shirt or something like that.
And it's
then
weird.
Nick Nurse, even if Daryl Morey's not there, Nick Nurse is not going to be able to tolerate that.
Yeah, exactly.
Like that's your president of basketball ops. You cannot have that.
I feel like the players that are left on the team do have a good relationship with Morey. Maybe not PJ Tucker. I don't know how far up James Harden's ass he is. But Joel Embiid, it feels like he has a good relationship with Daryl Morey. It feels like Tobias getting protected by Daryl Morey on social media. It feels like they have a good relationship. So at some point, you have to step up for the team and the organization. And I get it. This is a friendly league, friends, NBA, whatever. But at some point, this guy is being such a nuisance. You have to step up for your team and stop it. Even a guy like Maxey, I get it. He's young. He's in his 4th year. But James Harden comes in, is taking the ball out of his hands, acting half-assed with it.
I would like to know
if
you're PJ Tucker, how are you still drinking the Kool-Aid?
Yeah.
I know this, maybe they are best friends. Maybe that relationship runs thick from all the years of playing together. But you signed here.
Yeah.
Maybe only because of James Harden.
Yeah.
Now, maybe PJ Tucker's drinking the Kool-Aid because he believes that Daryl Morey didn't honor his word and basically stiff-armed James Harden and made a silent, dirty deal and kept James out of the loop and didn't give him the money he deserves, right? Maybe PJ believes that. But if you go back and just let's review all the evidence. Let's review all of the antics he has done to get out of his previous 2 situations. This is now the 3rd situation in less than 4 seasons. 3 scenarios, 4 seasons. The way he's gone about it. The production you witnessed on the floor. Now, either you're delusional also if you are bought into those 2 40, 45-point games more so than what he looked like in Game 7, in Game 2, in Game 6 against Brooklyn. Like, you can't just ignore all of that. You played on the floor with him. So I get how mesmerized maybe Game 1 you could have been by him. Wow, dude, look at this.
He's back.
But then you watch him in Game 3. We're together watching it. Joel gets his MVP trophy. And James Harden maybe has his worst game in his Sixers career. So how can you watch that and legitimately think this man deserves $42 million? $44 million.
What it immediately makes me think is they're fake friends. Like they don't hold each other accountable. Him and Embiid, right? They don't hold each other accountable at the end of the day. Because you sit here and you look at Jalen Hurts and AJ Brown. This is the godfather to AJ Brown's children, but he's not holding back on the sideline. And people take that as like some bad relationship. No. They're best friends. And best friends, brothers, hold each other accountable for their actions and everything that's going on in their life. And
I tell my friends the truth. When you're acting up, I'm gonna tell you you're acting up, dude.
And if PJ was so bothered by Daryl Morey, why isn't he demanding a trade? Because he could certainly get shipped off somewhere that needs a veteran, right?
When one of my friends thinks he's been slighted or done wrong, but he really hasn't, I want to tell you. Nah, man, like like this is what happened.
This is bad business.
Like you said, fake friendship, you're gonna feed into it. You're gonna feed that ego of James, man, that's bullshit. You deserve this. You deserve you deserve $50 million.
Come on.
You're out of your
He's not getting that from anybody, and that's the other side of this.
Scotty, he wasn't getting the 34 he got now from anybody else.
That's the thing. if he was even just 2-3 million more, right? He would have taken that if he could get that in the open market. The other side of it, man, you make a nuisance at practice, like you take it to that level where you're getting kicked out of practice. His career's over, man. Like
Well,
any type of like 20 plus, 25 million plus type of contract, he will not see.
no.
He will have a worse reputation than that of Kyrie Irving, who had to settle for a below market contract with Dallas, man.
Well,
It will
thanks
be
to our
beyond that.
previous,
He's not even as good as Kyrie at this point,
right?
if we're being honest. Like, and that's crazy
all.
to say. Harden's a 20-10 guy. I saw somebody put the stats. Everybody that puts those stats out, I get it. It's great for regular season, but when this guy disappears in 5 of 7 playoff games in a series, I mean, that speaks for itself as well. But if you go in here, you drive up a nuisance at practice in Colorado, you think that any other organization is going to bring that type of character into their locker room? Not a chance. Not any reputable
how about the Brooklyn
organization.
game, Scotty? How about the Brooklyn game when he was 4 for 7 from 3? And we're like, oh my God. But he was 4 for 21 from the floor. What the fuck? Are you kidding?
Yeah, man.
No, it's delusion, man. And thankfully, thanks to our former point guard, our last point guard, and his antics and his cell phone in the pocket and his way of forcing himself out, the NBA has rectified and done something about the situation the Sixers and James Harden are currently in, which limits what James Harden can and cannot do to be a distraction to his team and not live up to his contractual agreement and so on and so forth, where James Harden doesn't have the freedom he had in Houston 3 years ago to do what he did to get out. Ben Simmons, he doesn't have the freedom Ben Simmons had. No. And the wiggle room Ben Simmons had to still get his money, still get paid, and find a way out. No, you are going to be sent home, and you are going to get hit in the pockets if you do what you're thinking about doing.
And that's the funniest part. Thing. Yeah, it's the funniest part because people think that like Morey is gonna give in because Harden calls him a liar out in public.
Scotty, I am being dead serious. I know this sounds spiteful. And I know maybe it's not necessarily what's best for the Sixers because maybe any type of role player is better than a zero. Yeah. If I'm not getting what I think James Harden deserves and he wants to be like that and he won't come play or he wants to act up, you're going to sit out the year, brother.
Yeah.
You're going to sit out the year and you're going to get hit where it hurts most.
Yeah.
Like, I don't care. I'll be that petty if I'm Daryl Morey.
I think Morey is too.
I think people that would just be like, man, by deadline time or December, January, that would be like, man, just move on from this clown. No, that's what he wants. That is what he wants. And I'm not saying if you get a decent offer, don't do it just to spite him. If you get a decent to good offer for a role player or two that could help this team, maybe they start the first 2 months of the season and you're like, wow, like the role players around Embiid's MVP season, they look good. If you could bring in another little piece that can help that, you do that. But what I'm saying is if the best offer is like what the Clippers would offer right now, which is less than Terrence Mann, you can kiss my ass.
Yeah.
You're going to sit there, you're going to get fined, and you're going to sit out a year of your career and then see how much money you get next year.
The Clippers deal that I would look at and maybe accept is Terrence Mann, Norman Powell. I would want both of them.
Yes.
Because you get Norman Powell, that's 18 points.
That is now the bare minimum.
And I want draft compensation. Mm-hmm. Like we need a first round pick or two, right? A pick swap, something mixed in there to make up for that. But I don't even think Morey would accept that at this point. I really don't. He's a very determined individual. He knows what he wants. He knows what he values each player and each position at. And I'd imagine that he wants to start. I would imagine he's asking the Clippers for Paul George. Like I have no doubt in my mind. Maybe he's even asking for Kawhi. I don't know. That would be kind of crazy, but it wouldn't surprise me, man.
Here's where everyone needs to remain patient. I know it's going to start off ugly, and I know we're either going to have a disgruntled James Harden or a nothing in that category on the floor, right? All it takes, and I'm not wishing injury on anybody, but they happen throughout the course of a season.
Yeah.
And they happen to good teams, the championship caliber teams, and teams that aren't so desperate right now become very desperate to fill a void with a top 75 player to try to go and win a championship this year. Those things happen, man.
Yeah.
Those things happen in November, in December, in January, before the deadline. So if it takes 3 to 4 months, it takes 3 to 4 months. But to your point, LA, right? LA doesn't see him as valuable right now. They already have 2 stars.
Yeah.
Well, what happens, when someone goes down? Now, I know, you'd have to find a way to make that work simply because, let's just say Kawhi goes down. Well, they're not going to trade you Paul George and then just have James Harden.
Right.
But now, maybe Terrence Mann, Norman Powell, and Marcus Morris and a first or two is reasonable because they need a star to come in with Westbrook and Paul George.
Yeah. Look at it this way. You get close to the trade deadline. You're getting into February, right? Close to the All-Star break. And the Chicago Bulls realize, well, we're not competing for anything. So you're able to now swap James Harden, who is on an expiring contract at that point. You would just have to go through half a season and get that off your team. Whereas Zach LaVine is locked into a multi-year contract. Maybe you can just swap those guys at that point, and it doesn't matter what Harden wants, right?
Hey, I'll give you the draft pick at that point if I'm Morey. Hey, here's Harden and draft compensate and his first round.
Give us LaVine. That's a very realistic possibility, right? Even something with like Toronto, where you have OG Anunoby on an expiring contract, you have Pascal Siakam on an expiring contract. Your options open up as the season goes on. We saw that with getting James Harden for Ben Simmons. So I think patience is key to an extent. I have been kind of in between. I've been confused about the situation. I've been in between. But with the way the team, the vibes around the team right now, I think you're good to be patient. We've seen these guys step up for spurts at times. I think they can get through the regular season fine. 100%. It's about the postseason. I think that's where you need to either have Harden committed or have somebody to replace Harden then. But I don't think it's going to affect you that much in the regular season.
Where this team was when Ben was doing what he was doing. You're talking about a rookie Tyrese Maxey.
Yeah, literally.
Joel Embiid before, MVP. Like that was like his first MVP caliber season, right?
Yeah.
You're talking, and then when you look at the depth and the bench and everything like that, and the leadership compared to what they have now, they're so much better right now than where they were at that point. And they were still on their way to winning close to 50 games with a nothing burger in that point guard category.
Yeah.
So they'll get by in the regular season just fine with nothing for James Harden. It's what's it going to take to get past Milwaukee and Boston and make that run?
Yeah.
You don't have enough ammunition at that point. And that's where that type of trade comes in.
There's so many variables. Like now I'm even spiraling down to like DeAnthony Melton. Mind you, I love DeAnthony Melton. I think he's a good piece to this team. If he comes out, performs while James Harden's out, performs very well, he's in an expiring contract. Maybe you can partner him with Harden and get an even better deal. Like there's so many ways that the Sixers can maneuver. They have stacked up a good amount of role players that maybe if they're performing well early on in the season, you're able to partner that up and get, multiple players out for one star. If that's what you ultimately want to do, right? I like the depth. I think just add it, subtracting 2 for 1 would be great, right? I'm thinking James Harden and PJ Tucker for a star caliber player. Zach LaVine would be the ideal fit in that just comes to my mind up front here. But I think that's like the ideal situation. That's probably what Daryl Morey's looking for, honestly. That or draft compensation.
I agree, man. I agree. It'll be interesting to see how it plays out. Something's going to give at some point, whether that's in a week, 2 weeks, or 4 months. I have no idea. Hell, maybe he shows up and says, I'm just going to play until he's uncomfortable enough to get me out of here, but I'm actually going to play. We'll see. We'll see what ends up happening and what plays out here over the coming weeks and months, man. But last topic of the day before we get out of here. and get ready for the pregame show later on tonight, guys. That'll be around 6 p.m. on the DSM Philadelphia YouTube channel. Make sure you are subscribed and turn on notifications. The Eagles, Howie Roseman, busy on the phones yesterday, goes out. They work out, bring him in. Bradley Roby signs with the Eagles for a chance to go win a title. And the thing that you have to respect and love most about this deal, it's the classic Howie deal, where you fix two positions with one stone.
Yeah.
That's basically what you did here. You bring in a guy who has been very, very solid in the slot at cornerback over the course of his about 8-year career so far. And you also allow all-pro James Bradbury to move back to the outside and get a younger guy who still needs to learn and grow in Josh Jobe off the field out of a starting role. Now, there are roles. There's going to be a role for Josh Jobe. He's going to get playing time. He doesn't need to start right now on a Super Bowl contending team. I think that was evident on Sunday. It was even a little bit evident on Monday night against the Bucs. But you bring in a guy like Bradley Roby, who wasn't signed, and we don't know what Bradley Roby has at this point of his career. Since 2018, he has not played more than 14 games. In 2019, he played 10 games. In 2020, he played 10 games. And then in 2021, he played 14 with the Saints and 13 last year with the Saints in 2022. But he's a former first-round pick, can play the slot. I don't know if he's been a Pro Bowler. Has he been a Pro Bowler?
I'm not sure.
He might have been. I'm not sure. In his time in Denver. But by bringing him in, you allow James Bradbury to go back to the outside. And I think that's the biggest thing for me, man. To get Slay and Bradbury across from one another, and they just bring in a formidable piece in the slot. I'm not looking for shutdown, right? I'm not looking for C.J. Gardner-Johnson in the slot. I'm not looking for any of that. I'm looking for formidable, can hold his own weight in the middle of the field and help out this defense while the two Pro Bowlers on the outside make plays. That's what I'm looking for, and I think that's what they did here.
Yeah, it was an experience thing. You get a guy with a ton of experience, especially as slot CB. 11 career interceptions, so he can get to the ball. I love it. I think it's a low risk, high reward type of move. A lot of people compared it to the Linval Joseph and Ndamukong Suh signings last season. I think I can see it on that type of light. I can also see it in a Patrick Robinson-esque light, who they signed the year they won the Super Bowl in 2017. So just solidifying an important part of your defense in the slot corner position, always going to be a big thing here. And even, you look at what this team needs, right? And I think it's gotten very simple over the last month, the first month of the season. Your linebackers are good. That's no longer like a question mark for me. You have Nicholas Morrow, who can make plays. You have Zach Cunningham, who is a tackling machine. And then you have Nakobe Dean coming back at some point. Now, barring injury, I think you're set at linebacker. So now the focus goes to safety. And I think signing Bradley Roby allows you to be very versatile in what you look for in a safety if you go out there on the open market and try to trade for one. So I as you mentioned, it kills two birds with one stone. I think it's low risk, high reward. And hopefully we get to see what he can do soon. I don't know how fast they'll throw him into the mix, given they're going against the Rams, but that'd be a hell of a test to go in there against the Rams this weekend. Probably won't have Cooper Kupp back, but they have Nakua. They have Tutu Atwell, who's been playing pretty well this season, Van Jefferson. So that would be a nice test to see where Roby is at without fully exposing the Eagles, if that makes sense. But we'll see how fast they get him acclimated. It's also a good sign. You talked about, we're going into week 5. He still wasn't signed. It was the same thing with Ndamukong Suh. Yeah. He looked great last year, right? So I don't think there's as much into that as it would have been maybe
I don't either.
5 years ago, where guys were always getting picked up in free agency. Veterans were getting picked up over young guys. I think it's kind of changed here where veterans sit back now. They let the field play out. And then they choose their best opportunity of getting a ring. And that's exactly what he said he did. So I love that veterans are viewing the Eagles in that light. I love that Howie's viewed in that light, that will make a deal with guys like this and ultimately cover another hole, man. So, yeah, great move. As always, from Howie, who's always out there looking. I'm excited to see what he can do. And if he sucks, he sucks. We'll just throw it. We'll figure it out. We know what we're
Cast
doing
another
here.
stone. But
Exactly.
no,
But
I
I had one question for you outside of this, just regarding the Eagles, just really quick, because I heard him talking about it on 97.5 this morning on John Kincaid's show. And apparently Sirianni mentioned that not only did he support the 3rd and 11 call on the Gainwell run in the red zone at the end of the game, he made the call, is what he told reporters yesterday. I was wondering, is there any concern there that Sirianni is taking the play calling out of Brian Johnson's hand at the end of a game? Or do you think that was just Nick Sirianni kind of covering his offensive coordinators behind? Like, what do you see there? Like, not a major concern, but is there any concern there?
If it's true, I do think it's concerning for a couple of reasons. Brian Johnson was the handpicked guy. He was brought. So if he's not able to fulfill play calling duties up to the expected level, well, you got that wrong. And now we're back to Nick calling plays, which wasn't successful the first time around.
Yeah.
So that's a worry. I don't love Nick's hand in the cookie jar there. And I love Nick Sirianni. I don't love his hand. I don't love his hand in the play calling cookie jar.
That's how I feel.
If it was just a scenario where at the end of game, Nick took over play calling, I'm concerned about that as well.
Yeah.
You have to allow this man to grow. You have to allow him how to understand to call the end of game and everything like that. To let him, let's just say he called the first 3 quarters, and then with 8 minutes left, Nick was like, all right, I got this.
Yeah.
That's
like, how does that work?
And I'm highly doubting that Nick just called one play in the 4th quarter.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know. Very interesting. If
something to keep an eye on.
If it was to cover for Brian Johnson for maybe a confusing play call, I don't think it was the best way to cover for him, because you're almost making him look worse by saying you took the play calling sheet from him. I don't know, man. Very, very confusing. Nonetheless, the offense did put up points. Jalen Hurts looked the best he had all season, so on and so forth. The play calling still was somewhat of a head scratcher at moments. We talked about it. Overtime, throwing the ball downfield when you're already in field goal range and all you need is 3 to win it. Now, again, was that Brian Johnson? Was that Nick? Was that Jalen? Did they tell Jalen, man, you cannot throw this? But like if you're Jalen, you just have to know you can't put yourself in that position. Even if it was a true miscommunication, it doesn't look that way to the refs.
Yeah.
Because you threw it under duress, under pressure, where no one was.
Yeah.
Can't happen. And it almost cost the Eagles the game. So play calling, Jalen, Nick, Brian Johnson, they got to be better, man. And you just got to let Brian Johnson take the training wheels off. You've taken the training wheels off of everybody else on the staff, on personnel, players. You have to do it with the new OC. He's got the rapport with Jalen. You just got to let him grow throughout the course of the season.
I think it would be more acceptable if Brian Johnson made that call, right? Like,
100%.
Okay, first year OC, 3rd and 11, you're going to try some type of trick here with the run with Gainwell. If Nick Sirianni's calling that play,
that's a great point. That is a fantastic point. Like if it's Brian Johnson, it's asinine, but it's a learning mistake for him. All right, I'm not going to do that again. If it's Nick, my man, you've been around the block. You're a 3rd-year head coach. You just went to a Super Bowl. You're an offensive minded. I'm pretty sure you know that's not a good play call in that situation.
Yeah, exactly. A wide receiver minded guy, right? In Nick Sirianni doesn't make sense, but hopefully he's just covering for Brian Johnson. Hopefully that's what the effort was there. But something to keep your eye on going forward, right? Just seeing who's calling those plays. Hopefully it's not in question anymore going forward, but we'll see how it goes, man.
Yeah, no, I hope so, dude. But guys, with that said, that is going to wrap up this Wednesday edition. Happy Hump Day, Scotty. Didn't get to say
Happy
that
Hump
to you.
Day. Yes, sir. It's been a while.
This Wednesday edition of the Phaithful Phanatics Show. We will also be live tonight, 6 p.m. on the DSM-Philadelphia YouTube channel. Make sure you are subscribed, turn on notifications for Phillies Marlins Game 2 of the wild card round. for pregame live. Come drop your game predictions, your best bets, whatever you got for us tonight. We'll have some fun, crack a drink. It'll be a ton of fun, and hopefully the Phillies can punch their ticket back to the NLDS and take on the Atlanta Braves. We'll be back live on the Phaithful Phanatics show Friday morning, breaking down what hopefully was a very successful wild card round. For myself, for Scotty, have a great rest of your Wednesday.
Let's go fighting.